Hi there. Welcome back to Becoming Aware of Angels. This is session number 9, and we're continuing with the subject of hospitality in angels. And in the last session, we talked about the scripture that says, uh, "Don't neglect showing hospitality to strangers, for in so doing, some have entertained angels unaware." And we also showed how the likeness between heaven and earth is seen in how Moses was given the measurements of the tabernacle and so on. And when it was just so, then it looked like heaven. So Jehovah came and appeared there, and at the Ark of the Covenant there. All right. So, and what we're saying is that heaven and earth, when there is hospitality, the hospitality of heaven is duplicated upon the earth. The likeness between heaven and earth is the same. That they're like one another, and that's where the appearance of angels and the hosts of heaven are now show up. Okay, and so that's kind of the explanation that we tried to get across in the first session
Right.
on hospitality. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about Abraham, so that we can
Okay.
see Abraham actually walked with angels. Okay, we saw his extraordinary hospitality
to strangers
to
in
strangers.
the building of his garden.
Yes, and then with Ishmael's first wife and Ishmael's second wife, and the likeness of where there was no hospitality, then when there was hospitality, and the love that Abraham had because of that.
Right.
And so Abraham was, who is our father in the faith, and so therefore we look at our faith matching his. It would have something to do with hospitality,
Right.
because that was big in Abraham's life. So all right, let's look at
This is Genesis chapter 18, and this is, I think Abraham knew that these were angels and not men.
yes.
And it's interesting that I'm going to read out of Genesis, but the same story is in Yasher that we read about in the last session. And in Yasher, it tells us that it was the new moon. It was
yes,
the first
that's
new
right.
moon,
Yes.
which is a heavenly celebration. That's not mentioned in the scripture, but it does say that in Yasher.
Yes.
Or it might be Jubilees, one or the other. Anyways, so Genesis chapter 18. And Jehovah appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, and he was sitting at the door of the tent in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes, and he looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And he saw, and he ran to meet them from the entrance of the tent. And he bowed to the ground, and he said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, I beg you, do not leave from near your servant. Please, allow a little water to be taken, and you wash your feet and rest under the tree. And I will bring a bite of bread, and will sustain your heart. And then you may pass on, for this is why you have passed over to your servant. And they said, Do so, as you have said.
Now that right there, being what you brought in before, it says that it's a new moon.
Right.
There's a feast.
Yes.
Then if there's
In
a
the
new
heavenlies,
moon,
there's
in
a
the heavenlies,
feast.
there's a feast.
Yes.
And so this is why they've come.
Right.
Abraham knows this.
Yeah. And apparently he's not prepared.
Yes.
He's very unprepared for a feast. So he ran to the tent to Sarah.
Or at least they came early.
They may have come early, maybe in preparation. Who knows? And he said, Hurry, prepare 3 measures of fine meal and knead it and make cakes. And then he ran to the herd and brought a son of the herd, tender and good, and gave it to a youth. And he hurried to prepare it, and he took the curds and the milk and the son of the herd which he had prepared, and he set it before them. And they stood by him under the tree, and they ate.
Wow. And these are the 3 who discuss with him. They have come to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the reason why they were destroying Sodom and Gomorrah is actually the opposite of what they're having what they're experiencing with Abraham.
Right.
Now, most people think that Sodom and Gomorrah, because of their immoralities, their gross immoralities, that was the only reason. But it started long before that. And we're going to read to you now the history of earlier history of Sodom and Gomorrah
Right.
that brought them into the worst of who they became as human beings.
Right.
The worst of who they became started with their lack of hospitality.
Right.
All right, so this is a rather long read, but I think you'll find it very interesting.
So again, we're going back to the historical books. This one is Yasher, and it's mentioned in the beginning of the book of Joshua in the scriptures.
And once in Samuel, too.
So Yasher chapter 19. And when it's talked about the city, it's referring to Sodom. And a poor man came into the city to seek a maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom, not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead on the earth. And they did so. And Pultith, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the streets, starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive, and he was just upon the point of death. And her soul was filled with pity on account of the man, and she fed him secretly with bread for many days, and the soul of this man was revived. For when she went forth to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher, and when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat, and so she did many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, "This can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days or live as this man has, without even his countenance changing." And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was stationed, to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Pultith, the daughter of Lot, because remember Lot lived in the city with his family,
Right.
went forth that day to fetch water. And she put bread into her pitcher of water, and she went to draw water by the poor man's place. And she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the 3 men saw what Pultith did to the poor man, and they said to her, "It is you then who has supported him, and therefore he has not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." Like the rest, so this was common.
Like the rest, yes.
And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed, and they seized her and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. They actually literally took it out of his hand. And they took Pultith and brought her before the judges. And they said to them, "Thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore he did not die all this time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to the woman for having transgressed our law." And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city, and they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. And in the city of Admah there was a woman to whom they did the like. For a traveler came into the city to abide there all night with the intention of going home in the morning. And he sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father to remain there. And as the sun had set, when he had reached that place, the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house. And he asked her for a drink of water, and she said to him, "Who are you?" And he said to her, "I was this day going on the road, and I reached here when the sun set. So I will abide here all night, and in the morning I will arise early and continue my journey." And the young woman went into the house and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this affair became known to the people, and they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, that they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, "The judgment of death must pass upon this woman, because she has transgressed our law. And therefore this is the decision concerning her." And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to foot, as the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees, which was then in their hives. And the bees flew upon her and stung her, that her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries ascended to the heavens. And the Lord was provoked at this, and all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had an abundance of food, and had tranquillity amongst them, and still they would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before the Lord. And the Lord sent for 2 of the angels that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities.
So we find that, surprisingly, it's not just their immorality. It began with their inhospitality.
Their lack of hospitality.
Or it may be, I don't know, there might be a better word for that is more descriptive, like really ugly stuff. You know, they preferred to see the death of a young woman because they didn't get to see the death of a man in need. And they ended up probably with both. And then it was the thrill of death while they are being fed and filled.
And it wasn't just a quick death done quietly. It was a public spectacle in the streets.
Yes.
In both cases.
Torture.
Of torture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no wonder the 3 men show up with Abraham and get hospitality.
Yes.
So you see these two stories go together. The absolute opposite of these 3 angels come to Abraham, and they find exactly the opposite of what they've come to judge.
Right.
And so it's like the permission to do what they were about to do was given by Abraham by doing what heaven would do, as opposed to what these people in Sodom and Gomorrah and the region around there.
Well, the angels still showed up.
Yeah.
Even in their inhospitality, the angels still showed up.
That's right.
But they had a very different reason
for showing up. You don't want angels to show up that way around your house, you know. Okay, so we look at new moon feasts and Shabbat, where there are heavenly beings. We think those things are religious functioning things that we do, just stuff we do, you know.
Right.
But it's more than that. According the scriptures and the people of Abraham's time, for instance, knew better than that. They understood that that heaven is celebrating, and we celebrate with heaven instead of we're under command to celebrate.
Right.
There's a big difference in that. He says to you, feast. Why? Well, because he wants me to feast. But there's way more than that.
I don't think it's even about the feast.
No.
It's about celebration.
It's about celebrating with heaven.
Yeah.
Heaven is going to celebrate whether you do or not.
Right.
Why not have the hunger for heaven to be and make earth look more like heaven? Why not have that hunger? But because in so doing, people entertain angels unaware.
Right.
Okay, and they're unaware that those things are going to produce angels. They'll be entertaining them, or many are every case of those angels showing up is going to be absolutely an individual case, and it's going to be another really cool story, you know. So these new moon feasts that we have talked about become more important to us than they have been in the past, where they've been absolutely ignored, where they've been even over-religious people are afraid of them, and so they speak improperly about them. They don't know the scriptures, and so they don't understand them, and they don't understand that principle of heaven is here, yet all of them want to die and go to heaven. And so, but heaven is here too, right?
Right.
And so those new moon feasts are about hospitality, and they're the movement of heaven around us, knowing when it's taking place and being hospitable
Right.
provides the appearance of angels in our lives so that we can actually see them and communicate with them, just as Abraham did.
Right.
I mean, and then they communicated with the people of Sodom, and there's so much communications between angels and people, and why would that all of a sudden be shut off?
Yes.
There's absolutely no good reason for that whatsoever,
Right.
except for our behavior
Right.
and how we handle these things, right?
Yes.
And so the surmounting strength of hospitality is also found in Jesus' words when he says, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst." That brings a new light to that. We
Right.
normally have only functioned in defining it as a form of prayer. We call it the prayer of agreement. And when we put it in light with hospitality, then all of a sudden he's talking about hospitality.
He is.
And his presence is going to be there. All right, so hospitality is important when it comes to becoming aware of angels. And we appreciate you coming and learning about angels with us. I hope you found those stories to be as interesting as we have. And we'll be talking about some other things coming up in the next sessions of becoming aware of angels.